Northern to become a more sustainable institution. And so what I'll be presenting today is really the work of a large number of people across campus in different departments, faculty, staff, students, working together to really try to encourage administration to make decisions, but also just doing what we can in our own capacity in our own areas to make the institution more sustainable. So calling it the state of sustainability. And many of you who are in this room, it's great, like Jess was saying, absolutely fantastic to see so many wonderful colleagues and friends in here. Most of you probably know what sustainability is, but we typically go to the most common reference, which comes from the UN, the Brundtland Commission's report, which simply states that sustainable development is that which meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And any of you have studied this or heard about sustainability are pretty familiar with the 3 spheres, right? So most people often think of the environment or the planet. You know, they think about recycling and composting and energy efficiency and renewables and all that really important, great sort of environmental stuff. But there's also really important, the economic and the social dimensions as well. And so sustainability really tries to, in some ways, I always tell students, I think in some ways sustainability captures some of the failures of the environmental movement by focusing solely on the environment, and really also thinks about, well, how do we promote economic development and economic growth and prosperity, and also the social component, social justice and social and equity and all of these other issues. So sustainability is a very comprehensive framework that allows us to think about the planet, yes, first and foremost the planet, but also these really important other aspects of how we can't really protect the environment if we also don't have people have jobs and things like that. So it really is this sort of comprehensive, inclusive movement to try to make the world a better place for all, essentially. And here's just a list of the folks who've served on Northern Sustainability Advisory Council over the years. So you see Georgia's on our list here. Big shout out to Georgia. This whole initiative, President Erickson created the Sustainability Advisory Council in 2016, really in response to student demand. So Rachel Heddings, Ellis Grocki, Georgia Harrison, Olivia Walcott were sort of some of the early students who really were taking courses on this and really felt compelled that Northern needed to have a stronger institutional commitment to sustainability, and an advisory council to the president, which is what we do. We provide recommendations to President Erickson on everything related to renewables and energy efficiency on campus, to other dimensions of sustainability in terms of academics and research and all sorts of different dimensions. So it's started as a very grassroots movement. It continues to be a very grassroots movement. But we've been really excited by some of the things we're seeing on campus and the directions that we see for future growth. And so one of the first things we did in 2016 when the Sustainability Advisory Council was formed was to do STARS. As Ryan mentioned, I'll talk a lot about the STARS report, which is the Sustainability Tracking, Assessment, and Rating System. And it's overseen by this national group called the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Ed. And basically it creates a framework for comparing your sustainability performance in institution like a university's sustainability performance, and using real data, like using real metrics on, you know, everything from energy use, water use, waste use, to number of courses that have sustainability in it, all these different metrics. And it's compiled in a 400-page report that you can access. Anybody with an NMU.edu email can access the full sustainability report on all these metrics on AUDIT's website. And so we used that data from our first audit, our sustainability inventory, to create a plan. So in 2017, we had a bunch of public forums, much like this, and we tried to get input from students and staff and others in our campus community about what do we see as the real priorities for sustainability? What should Northern really be investing in? And we combined that feedback that we had at a couple of different public forums with the data that we saw in STARS, and we kind of came up with these 5 strategic recommendations that we submitted to the president and the board and all of that to push the needle for sustainability at Northern in a positive direction. And so we did this Northern's first ever sustainability plan in 2017. It was called Northern 2020. So guess what, folks? We have to make a new plan. And Jess, being very smart, Jess said, why don't we shoot for 2030? Give ourselves a little bit of a longer time span, not only so we don't have to write plans every 3 years, but it'll give us some time to align also with the UN Sustainable Development Framework. And I'll talk more about that in a second as well. But what's really exciting about our sustainability plan here, which was, community informed, based on data and sort of the empirical observations and ideas that we got from the STARS report, was that it gave us these 5 things to focus on: institutionalize sustainability, cultivate sustainability leadership, invest in energy innovation, promote sustainable transportation, and purchase local food, support local farms and our local food system. And out of 4 out of these 5, we've made progress. We've hit our targets in 4 out of these 5. We're still working for number 1, which we do see as like the biggest lever, I guess, to take us to the next level would be to create a hub for sustainability with someone whose job, their primary job was to be a director of sustainability, who could help us lead the and organize the eco reps and all of that. But in numbers 2 through 5, we actually made some great progress, and that's what we've been able to measure with the STARS report. So that's what I'm going to kind of get into the weeds a little bit. But one of the goals of this talk is not only for me to give you sort of like the greatest hits of what we've done in the past 3 years since our last sustainability audit, but is also to solicit input from you all. Jess and the Eco Reps have put together a nice little survey about what should our sustainability priorities be for going into the future. And I know the students in my classes have already done this, but if you have not been able to take this survey, we're looking for feedback, not only from students, but from staff, faculty. What do you think our priorities should be? And Aishi, and if people do have questions as I'm going, I'm happy to be interrupted. Maybe Ryan or Jess could monitor the chat, because I don't see the chat, but if somebody else wants to just shout out if somebody has a question and wants to type it into the chat, Ryan can monitor that for me. But one of the interesting things that Aishi's been doing, the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Ed, the ones who oversee STARS, is they're really trying to align all these super in the weeds metrics that they have us report on. So, tons of waste diverted from the landfill, all of these, I'll get into some of those little metrics. They're trying to align all of this sort of on the ground sustainability practices with these bigger UN Sustainable Development Goals. And the UN Sustainable Development Goals are on this 2030 timeline. And here they are right here, these sort of 17 areas that the UN has identified as strategic areas to promote global sustainability. And so what's kind of cool about this is we're hoping for our next sustainability plan is to align really specific things that we can do at Northern with these much broader global sustainability goals around everything from eliminating poverty and hunger, health and well-being, education, gender equality, equality more and inequalities in other areas, clean water, affordable and renewable energy, climate action, sustainable cities, all of these different things. There are ways in which our STARS metrics link to this, and it only kind of makes the argument for why we should be moving in this direction that much more impactful, because it's not just, what we're doing here locally at NMU and, recycling and all of this. It ties it to these bigger sort of goals that are not just local, but global. Any questions so far? I know I'm zipping through a lot of information. We're good? Okay, and we would, I put this up here. Last time we did something similar, we had people had little sticker dots that they could put on different ideas, and we had a really nice interactive way of soliciting input. And unfortunately with COVID, we weren't able to do the in-person interactive idea sharing, but hopefully this little chat will allow for some idea sharing. Okay, so STARS, as Ryan mentioned at the beginning, STARS is the Sustainable Tracking Assessment and Rating System. This is something that colleges can choose to do. It's self-reporting. And then you get kind of ranked either bronze, which we were in 2017, we were ranked bronze, which was a very fair assessment of where Northern was at. Silver, gold, and platinum. And they're very few institutions are platinum. But this year we were ranked silver. So it was kind of exciting. And we'll talk about what brought us from bronze to silver, because there was some pretty important key things. Yes, I see clapping. Thank you, Ryan. It was great work by all. And the 4 broad categories that STARS measures is, the first one is, first category is academics and research, which includes everything from course offerings to, what type of research faculty are engaged in. The second thing is engagement. So that's, on-campus activities for students, student orgs, and all of that, as well as how does the campus engage with the broader community around issues of sustainability. And then a really big chunk of STARS is operations. And so that's where you're measuring energy use and waste, water, grounds, how we're managing the grounds, all of those kinds of like on the ground operations and facilities types of metrics are in operations. And the last thing is in administration and planning. So within each of these 4 broad categories, there's lots of smaller metrics that we're gathering. And how we did this as a sustainability council, I'm just speaking because I was one of the people who helped kind of pull all the information together, but we really split this up in a very kind of grassroots collaborative way. So I think Kathy Richards is in this call on this talk as well. Kathy is our director of facilities. She has been a great champion of sustainability and a force on our Sustainability Advisory Council. So Kathy and my co-chair, Brandon Sager, who's also in facilities, really kind of took the reins with operations and got the data on that piece. Engagement, I think that was John Barch, who used to be in the director of the Center of Enrichment, Students Enrichment. And Jess was also really instrumental in engagement. And Jess also was leading the administration and planning metrics. I helped to get information on kind of the academics and research. And so it was we had subcommittees working on each of these to get information about these different areas. And so just to link this back to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and to give you a sense of the kinds of things we're measuring within each of these 4 categories. So for example, number 1 sustainable development goal for the UN is, eliminating poverty. So within academics, AC5 would talk about immersive experience. Institution offers sustainability focused immersive educational program that contributes to this goal, right? So is there a degree that specifically addresses poverty elimination? So what we would do is look into programs like social work, for example, on campus, and look at like, okay, is this something that could count towards this goal? And we actually had a survey that faculty took out to help us identify areas of where sustainability is being implemented across campus. Again, you can see engagement. Then within engagement, there's all these other different metrics that talk about, community service, what percentage of students and employees participate in community service. Well, thankfully, our Center for Student Enrichment gathers metrics on that stuff. So a lot of the time we were just sharing data that is already being collected by other offices on campus and putting that in the framework of, well, how does that relate to sustainability? And does it meet AUDIT's requirements for what counts? But you can see how the STAR stuff is going to help us align to these bigger, broader sustainable development goals. So with this goal, sustainable cities and communities, again, you can see engagement and operations. Just to kind of point out some of the things, we do a survey on transportation habits. Many of you probably took that survey, trying to measure like how many folks on campus use sustainable transportation, which is pretty much anything that's not a car, or even carpooling can count as sustainable forms of transportation. And we get percentages, and we can include that, and that gives us information on the transportation habits and commute habits and different aspects of operations. But then we can connect that to these bigger ideas about sustainable cities and sustainable communities. that's just to give you a flavor of like how these different categories are broken down into subcategories and things like that. All right, so here we are. This is, hopefully going to be what I call the greatest hits talk on how we got from bronze in 2017 to silver in 2020. I think actually some of us were kind of surprised. I mean, very happy that we got bumped to silver, and we kind of barely just got to silver, but we were like pretty solidly in silver, but we're, a few points into it. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we got there and how the specific things that have been happening on campus align with our sustainability plan from last time. And hopefully I want you to be thinking about, okay, well, where are some areas we could grow and focus on in the future? And we'll try to spend at least the last 15, 20 minutes talking about your ideas for the future. All right, so I get really excited about what's happening with our academics and research, because this is definitely an area of strength across campus. I think a lot of us would love to see large solar demonstrations across all of the parking lots and, something obvious and physical. And it's been kind of a, we've been advocating for that, but what we're seeing as a big strength is not necessarily these large infrastructure investments that the administration's making, but it's what students and faculty and staff are kind of doing on their own across campus without, funding from the university. So for example, academics, we found that in 2017, 62% of all departments across campus offer some curriculum related to sustainability, which was pretty high. Even I think we were pretty surprised in 2017 that was even that high. But that's 80% now. 80% of academic departments on campus offer something related to sustainability. They don't necessarily have a degree called sustainability, but at least there's curriculum, coursework, people within those departments that are, passionate about this and are teaching it in their classes. So I was just thrilled to the hills about like 80%, because we would love to see sustainability flourish across the campus. And I think that really reflects that. Research was another big highlight for us. We measured of all tenure or tenure track faculty, so people whose job is specifically having to do something with scholarship and research. Of the tenure track faculty, it went from about 20% of the faculty who self-reported that their research was related to sustainability to 24%. So almost a quarter of faculty on our campus are doing something related to sustainability. So again, we're really excited about that. Percentage of departments who have at least one person in those departments doing sustainability, up to 68% from 38%. And so one of the questions that that faculty were asked on the survey we did was, does your research address sustainability challenges? Does it attempt to engage the community on sustainability issues? Things like that. And so there was a definition of what sustainability was, and faculty were kind of self-reported on this about if they felt their research was sustainability or not. So we felt that was really exciting. And the one singular, probably the thing of all things that really helped improve Northern sustainability performance was the eco reps. And again, I'm really excited that Georgia Harrison is here, because Georgia Harrison and Olivia Walcott and several other students were adamant that the Board of Trustees needed to support sustainability on campus. And so these students, in a very articulate and bold fashion, would go to Board of Trustees meetings and would advocate and ask for funding to support sustainability on campus. And at one of the Board of Trustees meetings, they on the spot agreed to drop $30,000 on this peer-to-peer education program called the Eco Reps. 40,000 was it, Jess? I thought it was 30,000. Thank you for that update. But yeah, like that never happens, right? And like the Board of Trustees is saying, yes, we will just give you money because we see the value of the program that you're trying to get off the ground. So that investment in student-led, student-run, with the help of Jess Thompson, Jess has been an awesome facilitator of that student leadership. it's been amazing to see what the eco-reps have done. So many of you are involved with the eco-reps program. I have a slide at the end to show you, if you are not involved, how you can get involved. We see the eco-reps as kind of the student branch, the student ambassadors of the Sustainability Advisory Council. They've been running programs. Some of you probably remember from last year. Unfortunately, you know, pandemic has cramped everybody's style a little bit, but running clothing swaps, Mend It Mondays, doing art with recycled materials, turn down the lights campaigns to try to create sort of a fun, competitive, who can conserve the least amount of energy in different buildings on campus. This week, Sustainability Week, was eco-reps really trying to create and raise awareness from others on campus about sustainability. They've reached over 4,800 students, again, because they're required to track the number of people who come to their events. They've reached over half of the entire student body has been influenced in some way by the work of the eco-reps. And so I think this engagement section, there's lots of different metrics that we were able to use because of the eco-reps and because of the programming that they have created and organized on campus. So thank you so much to our eco-reps. We are very grateful for you, and you've really been the ones to lead this for us. So, and in addition to the eco-reps, there are also many other great sustainability related activities on campus. This forum, the Northern Climate Network, has been an awesome way to bridge not only expertise in the on campus, but in the community, and really fostering these bigger conversations around climate change and what can we do about it, and spreading awareness about that. So that's been a great sort of community partnership that Jess Thompson really helped to develop, and now Ryan Stock is helping to take the reins on. All these other great organizations that students have led, the Hoop House, the community garden. There's actually another community garden on campus that's being started by students and a community partner, Sarah Bixby. 1 o'clock today, there's a harvest party at the Lincoln Street Apartments there in the other community garden that's now been started. So we see this flourishing of interest in sustainability across the campus and across departments, and I think it's really exciting. Okay, so getting more into the operations thing. And again, if people have any questions, please, are we good? No questions yet? I'm looking at Ryan to, no questions? Okay, I'll just keep zipping until we get through some of this information, and then there will be more conversation hopefully at the end. Okay, so diving into the operations section, energy. Well, given a baseline of the academic year 2010 to 2011, we've reduced overall energy consumption per unit floor area by 13.5%. And so, you know, again, a lot of us would love to have like solar panels everywhere on campus and something visible and, you know, symbolic and actual commitment to investing in renewables. But one of the kind of low-hanging fruit that Northern's been able to invest in is things like switching out light fixtures to LEDs. So, and Kathy can correct me on this, but we're about 15% of all light bulbs have been converted to LED. And they're kind of on a track to phase out all the old lighting. And so it seems like a small thing, but it's been saving us like tens of thousands of dollars a year. So these kinds of energy reduction, energy efficient measures have been something that we're really excited to see. And we're excited about, you know, investing in other energy innovations in the future. Food and dining, this is one that has been really exciting. In our sustainability plan, we had a goal of meeting 10% of the food on campus being served coming from local sources. And we exceeded that. By 2010, we exceeded that 10% goal by having 11.3% of the dining of food served on campus is coming from local sources. So the eggs on campus are from BSB Farm, and the beef on campus, a significant portion of that is local. Phil's Fish House. And when Chef Nathan was here, who was used to head up the dining services, he said, you know, we have the budget and we have the demand for local food. Like he really wanted to even go above and beyond this 11%. And he said the issue was the capacity of the local food system. And so that helped us change our thinking from we just want to buy more local food, but how do we think broader and more systemically about how do we support the local food system so that the supply is there, the demand is there, the willingness to pay for local food is there, but we, just don't have the sort of agrarian capacity in the UP to support what the dining service needs. So that's an area that we'll continue to work on. And actually Kim Smith, who is a professor in the indoor ag program, which just started, I think this fall, the indoor agricultural program in biology, which is an interdisciplinary program, is really excited about being on the council, and she's been really interested in getting more involved. So I think, and then there was another new degree in sociology on food and society. And so I think food is another area that we're going to see more and more interest in. And with climate change, we'll have a longer growing season. So that could be a really exciting opportunity for growth. Transportation. Well, this was another one that was in our sustainability plan. We wanted to see investment in non-motorized transportation. And we have seen students and staff and employees, percentage of students who they say sustainable forms of transportation, which is essentially walking, biking, carpooling, or public transit. Public transit numbers are pretty much non-existent, which is an issue the city is working on, and we can talk a little bit about that too if people are interested. But we've seen this increase from about 50% of students to 60% of students using sustainable modes of transportation. For employees, that's shifted from about 13 to 18%. So that's been exciting to see. And another thing that we, got points for was this partnership with the No Kamenon Trail Network. Many of you on campus know that we have a new trailhead, and we've worked with the NTN to create linkages to the North Trails, and really have been working to try to not only promote mountain biking as a recreation form, but think about cycling as a transportation form too. And we worked with Ryan Watling, a student was on an internship, and we helped supervise him to submit Northern's first ever bike-friendly city application, or excuse me, bike-friendly university award. We also were involved with the city's application for a bike-friendly city. And this was the first time Northern filled out this, award. And it's a similar, system where there's all these different metrics about bicycling infrastructure on your campus, and then you get ranked, where you are. And we're at bronze, which I think is a fair assessment of where Northern's at with our bike infrastructure and programming. But it's a good step in the right direction, right? To start getting metrics on all these different variables that we can then start to improve upon. So, and even doing the bike-friendly city application got us points for stars. So it's all moving in this positive direction. Okay, so water and waste. Well, water is something that we've seen dramatic improvements on. So reduction in potable water use. So that's increasing, with technologies on campus. It's also, there was, I guess, several years ago, it's better to refill than to landfill. So really trying to encourage people to use, water bottles instead of plastic water bottles. And so, yeah, and also, and again, we can talk more about that if people are interested in some of the technology that was implemented. I think Kathy is on here and she can speak more to the specific, technologies that were implemented to reduce water use on campus. Waste diversion, we did pretty well on this. 65% of construction and demo materials from new construction on campus were diverted from a landfill, so recycling was included. And again, Brendan Sager, who is the head of new construction on campus, and he is the co-chair of Sustainability Advisory Council, could also speak to some of this as well. Another aspect I mentioned again at the beginning of this, the 3 spheres of sustainability. It's not just sort of waste, water, and energy and all of this, but it's also looking at these issues of diversity and inclusion. And so in 2016, Northern hired its first Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, who was tasked to create a diversity and inclusion strategic plan. And another thing that it seems weird, but we get points for, is the fact that many of our students come from lower income families. And so 44% of Northern's student body is, applied for need-based aid. And Northern's met over 64% of those students' need in financial aid. And so that does show, oh yeah, question? Somebody have a question? No? Oh, I thought I heard somebody. Northern might not be the most sort of racially diverse campus community, but there are these other metrics that I think do demonstrate different forms of diversity and ways in which Northern has tried to be inclusive. And so this again relates back to those broader sustainable development goals about reduced inequalities. You can see support for underrepresented groups. Institution has programs in place to support vulnerable groups and creates a more diverse and inclusive campus community. Affordability and access, all of these things are sustainability metrics that might not seem as sort of intuitive or obvious as the other things, like how much waste did you divert. But we see them as equally important to the overall goal of sustainability on campus and globally. Employee satisfaction, Northern did really well on this one too. So this first one, 89% of students earn a living wage. It of course makes you wonder, like, okay, well, what about the other percentage of people not earning a living wage? But by STARS metrics, this was a fairly high number. And then there's this employee satisfaction survey that goes out. Again, a lot of our data was just like finding people who've already done this research and had these numbers in other areas on campus. So I don't even know who was this, maybe Jess remembers, but who runs this employee satisfaction survey? Do you remember, Jess, who that was? Is that?
It's HR. They do.
Is it just HR?
Mm-hmm.
So we basically mined their data, and we found that 85% of the people who responded to that one said that they strongly agreed that they felt a sense of accomplishment with their jobs, that what they do makes a difference. And that was across the board. So staff and faculty. And so I thought that's actually like heartwarming, right? That people seem to think that their work is meaningful, and that's encouraging. And so one of the big other categories that we measured was administration and planning. And so part of that is just having a plan for sustainability. What is your sustainability plan? So the fact that we had created a sustainability plan that had targeted goals that we could achieve helped us, get points for STARS and things like that. But it also gave us a framework to think about and organize our efforts around, so that when we're now in 2020, we can look back and we can say, oh yeah, number 2, cultivate sustainability leadership, eco reps, boom, we kind of crushed that one. That was great. Invest in energy innovations. Well, we did a lot to invest in efficiencies. There has been interest in trying to promote more renewables. I think that might be a strategic area we could focus on in the future. Sustainable transportation, right, with the NTN and the partnership and the Bike Friendly University Award. And again, trying to cultivate the capacity for our local food system here. We hit the 10% target for the dining services, and there's other ways I think that we can continue to support our local food system with new programs such as the Indoor Ag program and other related initiatives on campus. So anyway, so that leaves us to what I'd like to spend the rest of the time with you all thinking through, okay, what's the next step? We're at silver. What would it take to get us to gold? And beyond just like the numbers, for our STARS report, where do you see the important areas of sustainability that you think Northern should be focusing on? Given kind of what I've laid out, where we've been, where we've come, where some areas of strength are, what do you think we should focus on for the future? Again, please, if you haven't taken our survey, please do take that survey, because we're going to use that when we go back and we start thinking about, okay, let's flesh out the next sustainability plan. We want to have as much public input on that as we can. And I'm saying we, because I see wonderful community partners here too. So not even just Northern, but even folks from, our neighbors and friends from the greater community. We would love your input on this as well. And again, we're going to tie that to the UN Sustainable Development Goals and really try to give, evidence-based strategic recommendations to the president, and then also in our own work to think about how can we continue to improve our sustainability performance, not only locally, but how can these local actions sort of trickle up to meet these global sustainable development goals. Okay, any questions, comments? This is when I would love to have some open debate and thoughts from you all about, priorities for the next 10 years or even the next 2 years or 5 years, you know, that we could step into a 10-year plan. Thoughts, comments?
Sarah, thanks for a wonderful greatest hits compilation here. Those hits are pretty great. I have a quick question about the Green Fund. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that and maybe how that fits into some of the plans that you all will work towards by 2030.
Sure. Yeah, we had to do some digging to find the answer to that question because we've had students like Georgia Harrison, Megan, and others, Codal, who've gone to these Board of Trustees meetings. They sit patiently through them and they've been advocating for years. Hey, and they did a survey. They did a survey of the student population and they found it was like 72% of students. It was an ASN NMU survey. So the student government sent this out. It wasn't just to sustainability students. Broadly surveyed the student community and said, would you pay an extra $5 to support sustainability on campus? And they found that like 72% of students said, yeah, sure, I'll pay a green fee. And so they brought this, information to the Board of Trustees and they said, students are willing to pay for sustainability on campus. Will you create a green fund? It's kind of like a PEEF thing. If you have like on their tuition bill, it's like, do you want to use the PEEF? You can opt in or opt out. And it was actually passed recently, I guess at the summer board meeting. We were joking how we didn't actually follow through to see if it had been passed, but it did get passed. And so this semester we had students telling us, oh, there was a green fee that was added to my tuition bill. That's exciting. Where's that money supposed to go? Well, that money is supposed to go to the Eco-Reps program. And that's where we're still trying to figure that out because I think they're still trying to figure it out because the president's office has been kind of busy with other things, but Jess Thompson did a lot of the digging on that. Jess, do you have anything else you want to add about that?
Apologies for the delay. I was just responding. Georgia was right. It was a ballot initiative back in 2017 or 2018. And then last year we surveyed students again and they were still overwhelmingly enthusiastic. And to my knowledge, only 800 students opted out of the fee. So this semester it went into effect and every student agreed to pay $5. And the fine print on the website is that this money goes to Eco-Reps programming. But as Sarah has mentioned, no one called us. No one said, hey, Eco-Reps, here's your budget. In fact, we found our budget cleared out. So we're piecing it together. We're trying to stay optimistic. We know that the board is meeting right now. We know that they approved the budget last night, or maybe the finance committee approved it last night and the board approved it today. And so that was the thing we were waiting on or what we were told we were waiting on is that the Board of Trustees needed to approve the overall university budget. And then we would begin to know more about where that money is and how it is. Yes, sorry, I'm gonna keep this optimistic, but Ryan, there are still questions to be answered. That's the answer to your question.
But I think, the happy note is that it did get passed and there is money to support sustainability on campus and it should go to the Eco-Reps. And I think it's just a matter of trying to figure out what that pathway looks like. But what the Eco-Reps do with it, that's a lot of money. Because it was like almost 6,000 students did agree to pay this $5 fee. So that's a considerable amount of money that you could do some really, not just programming on campus, but last year Jess had started a green idea campaign where there was money to if student had some great idea, like they wanted to put a rainwater garden on campus or solar panels or something, they could make a proposal with a budget so students are getting grant writing experience, and then there would be subset of the Sustainability Council could review these proposals and then use that money for projects on campus. Like that was a model that was at one of my previous institutions that I taught at, which was pretty great. And so that might be something we move towards, but it's kind of new, and like I said, we just learned that this green fund was actually passed when students came to us and said, "Hey, what's this green fund?" We were like, "Really, that passed?" Because nobody told us.
Yeah, a student had filled out an application on our website and said, I just haven't heard back. I applied for some green fund money for this effort that I'm working on. And I was like, you did what? No. And then lo and behold, it is
That's really exciting.
semester. There was a question in the chat. It's every semester. So if it's close to like $28,000, $30,000 a semester. So just imagine what we could do, guys.
That's so exciting. I remember Olivia and I, when we attended the first ASHE meeting that just she and I went to, the student sustainability projects, like the grant funding was a big part of that initial green fee proposal. So that's really cool to hear that that's still in the works, or at least being considered, and then it was maybe finally approved. Maybe.
Sarah, we have a great question from one of our beloved community partners, Karen Schmidt. She asks, do you know of a self-reporting survey like STARS counterpart for municipalities? And also, would NMU be interested in partnering with the city of Marquette?
That's a great idea, and something I've thought a lot about, because there are some cities who have sustainability coordinators, bigger cities, but I think Marquette, there's enough interest in it that, I mean, a committee like ours, we're all volunteers and kind of did this. I mean, it's possible. There's different systems. There's like the Natural Step program, which was developed in Sweden, and there's lots of different models for sustainable community development. But in terms of like the metrics that STARS is based on, I don't know any off the top of my head. There's lots of different kind of like guiding approaches and stuff, but not one that is this. One of the nice things about STARS is it's very in the weeds, and it's very like quantitative, and gives you specific metrics. We have partnered with the city for a couple of initiatives. Specifically, we have representation on the bike committee, the city's bike committee, and we helped them submit their bike-friendly city application. I sit on the city's planning commission too, so there's a lot of cross-pollination, I think, between interest in sustainability on campus and in the community. Because Marquette is this sweet size that you really can have those positive relationships between campus and the community. But Karen, to directly answer your question, I don't know of anything that's perfectly analogous to what ASHE and STARS is for cities, but I know of a couple of different, I could send you some links of like approaches and kind of best practices that cities have done, but it isn't quite the same, I guess.
I would just say Grand Rapids is a really neat example. Years ago, way back, the city partnered with Grand Valley State, and neither entity could afford their own director of sustainability. So what they did is they pooled resources, and they had one office that did both. And it created great collaboration between the city and the university. And now, obviously, both of those entities are well financed, and they have since gone and work in-house. But I think it's a great model, and they are part of like this West Michigan green something. They have a consortium that came out of that collaboration, which would be useful for us to kind of look at as like a similar, of course they're larger than us and have more resources, but the way they started could be a really cool model for us to rebuild here.
Yeah, Karen, if you want to shoot me an email, I'm happy to send you some links if you're interested in looking at a couple of those models. I definitely echo the Grand Rapids example, Grand Haven and Grand Rapids. Grand Haven has done a lot of cool sustainable coastal development. Anyway, I'm looking a question here from Superior Watershed Partnership. Oh, it's private. A private question about energy conservation. Well, we can privately discuss energy conservation, Superior Watershed Partnership.
Hey, so yeah, it's Tyler. Sorry, I'm logged in on our Zoom. I just had a question for you. with the 13.5% energy savings since 2010, that's really awesome. And I think a year back, I was at a city council meeting when they were discussing how they had partnered with Johnson Controls to reduce the city's energy consumption. And it sounded like a pretty sweet deal where they paid for Johnson Controls services out of the savings that they found for them. And if they didn't find any savings, then Johnson Controls wouldn't be paid for their work. So it was kind of a win-win. It ended up saving taxpayers money while also reducing energy consumption. So I guess I'm wondering, has NMU partnered with Johnson Controls to do something like this beyond just replacing light bulbs?
Yep. Yeah, I know. And I don't know if Kathy's still on here. Kathy Richards was on here, but she might have had to go to a meeting. But yeah, Johnson Controls has been instrumental in all of our energy decisions. I know we've partnered on them. I know when they switched out, I shouldn't say this because the number is not perfect in my head, but I think it was somewhere around like $10,000 when they switched out the lights in the dome. The dome alone uses so much energy, and when they had Johnson Controls come in and they changed them all out to LEDs, and it was like $10,000 worth of savings just from that one thing. And I forget, I think it was $10,000. It might have been like 9,000 something, but it was significant. But the question is, yeah, Johnson Controls has helped us out a lot. And Kathy, unfortunately, I don't think she's here, but might be able to speak more to other specific things that they've done with energy efficiency. But.
Okay.
I think we have time for one more question. I see that Rich Vanderveen posted a question in the chat. What and how might Invent at NMU and the Innovate Marquette Smart Zone contribute to the sustainability future of NMU?
Well, I'm going to punt this one to my colleague, Jess Thompson, who has been really instrumental in looking at sort of sustainability as an economic development strategy. So Jess, do you want to talk about SHINE and sort of where we see maybe the next step going with that?
Yeah, I think it's fair that we could say SHINE is out there. It's an idea. The acronym is Sustainability Hub in Innovation and, well, it was Enterprise and it's an environment, right, Sarah? That's where.
Or we could say equity. The E is up for debate.
The E can be so much. The E is for everything, honestly.
Yeah.
But what this idea was, the university is getting ready to launch one of these large campaigns, a donor campaign. And we, part of the Sustainability Advisory Council, said this is an opportunity for us to really do that institutionalizing sustainability work. And we put together a big idea proposal, which came back highly rated. They said it was in the top 3. And we've actually had several meetings with the foundation office. And what we included in there is Invent, this new SISU Center, Smart Zone, that there's a collaborative of efforts happening, and they need a hub. They need a place where we can share ideas, research, students, interns, and with nothing particularly at the center, but collaboration. And it has, so now as the university prepares their big funding campaign, we're I don't want to say we're wait and seeing, because we're still moving forward on all sorts of fronts, but Rich, you're spot on. If we could leverage some of these existing entities and start working together, even if it's just having a few meetings and a shared narrative about what sustainability means in campus/community, I think we can move the needle really far. So inevitably it comes back to relationships and spending time talking, and that's why I'm glad you all are here and to see the progress that we're making. But SHINE, keep your eye out for it. You will be tapped to be involved as we start to put together the next steps on that one.
All right. Any last quick comments or questions?
Yes, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been, what I've presented today is really the results of a lot of work across campus that often doesn't get acknowledged and celebrated. And I think it's one of our strengths, but also a weakness that a lot of the sustainability work has been happening in a really decentralized way across campus. And until we get a center or a hub or, some kind of external funding to bring it to the next level, it's great to have folks keep doing what you're doing and moving us in a good direction.